You to say a word of prayer, please.
Thank you. Bow our heads. Dear Lord, thank you for having us gather here today in Parliament at the Public Accounts Committee. Please ensure that we have good discussions, deliberative discussions, peaceful discussions, and beyond that, we are definitely would appreciate having the air conditioning system functioning again. Thank you for your mercies. In your name, amen.
You're one of those people who ask God for what you want. You ask the Lord. Members, are there apologies? I know Heather Miller is sent an apology. Any more apologies? No? Okay. In terms of my welcome and opening remarks, just to indicate how I intend to proceed today, we got some answers to some of the questions from the University Hospital, and there was also a response from the Ministry of Finance. I just want to deal with those first. We ended at item number 4 of 7, so I'll take the issues that arise from the questions first, go through item 5, 6, and 7, and then after we have completed that, there are the appropriation accounts and another matter related to the Ministry of Health. Madam Lewis, could you just introduce the team? Oh, okay. I know the Auditor General herself isn't here, but the team is here. Just introduce your team, please.
Morning, Chairman.
Morning.
To my right, Carolyn Lewis, Deputy Auditor General. To my left, Ricardo All.
Just talk into the mic so the...
Ricardo All, Principal Auditor. The ones behind me, can you raise your hands as I call your name. Junior Thomas, Director of Audit. Jennifer Hutchinson, Senior Auditor. Alicia Powell-Bowen, Director of Audit. Tessa Ashman, Principal Auditor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Blake, Ms. Blake, you want to just introduce the Ministry of Finance team, please?
Thank you, Chairman and members. To my left is Barrington Thomas, Principal Director, Accounting and Financial Policy, and to my right is Jovel Barrett, Chief Public Procurement Policy Officer.
And let me welcome the Permanent Secretary, Mr. Green. Could you just introduce the officials from the Ministry of Health and the University Hospital? You're going to have to bring the mic closer to you. Tap it and see. Turn it on. I don't know if it's on. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chairman. To my right is Mr. Donovan Davis. He is the Principal Finance Officer at the Ministry of Health and Wellness. To my left, Mr. Eric Hossein, who is the CEO Pro Tem of the University Hospital, West Indies. He will introduce his team. But with me from the Ministry of Health, I have Ms. Maureen Golding. She is a Chief Technical Director. I have Mr. Winston Mirage. He is from the IDB project. I have Mr. Wilshire, Andre Wilshire. He is in the Office of the Chief Programs Officer. We have our Chief Internal Auditor, Ms. Walker, and we have our Assistant, Ms. Ben, and Commander Dr. Paul Wright.
Good morning, Chair. With me, we have Ms. Valencia Dover from our Finance Department, Ms. Angela Curtis Cox from our Contract Department, Mr. Ainsworth Buckridge from Procurement, Mr. Dwight McLeish, our Internal Auditor, Mr. Kimani Bryson, our Legal Officer, Chief Legal Officer.
All right, thank you. I'm told in the audience, we normally are used to seeing younger persons, students, but I'm told this is the RSVP Club, which is an exclusive social organization comprising of returning residents from the UK, the US, and Canada. Well, let me thank you and welcome you to Jamaica. And I know you will continue to support your nation as you always do. The meeting here this morning is the Public Accounts Committee, and we are examining our report from the Auditor General on the University Hospital of the West Indies. Members, we have minutes from the last meeting. They are quite lengthy. I don't intend to go page by page, but are there any members identified any corrections or omissions from the minutes that they would like to highlight? If not, could I have a motion for confirmation? Member Cuthbert-Pinn, seconded by Member Brown. Members, from the first meeting that we had 2 weeks ago, it is apparent to me that the current management of the University Hospital is not in a position to answer many of the questions that we have related to the operations of the University Hospital. I'm seeking the committee's agreement for us to summon the current CEO of the hospital, who is on leave, Mr. Mitchell, the previous CEO, Mr. Allen, I believe his name is, and the former chairman of the board, Mr. Chai Chow. So I'm asking members for their agreement for that, so that we can have many of the questions that we have answered at this committee.
Indeed, Chairman, I would second that motion. Agreed, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Committee clerks, I'll ask you to write to those three individuals, the current CEO, Mr. Mitchell, the former CEO, Mr. Allen, and the former board chair, Mr. Chai Chow. What's the difference? Okay. All right. Just for the purpose of the people who follow the PAC, and I'll ensure that the answers that were provided to the questions we asked are tabled so that the members of the media can have access to them. And I'll start by going through the answers provided by the university in audit finding, key finding number 2. So this is, members, this is the document that I'm starting with. We can just go through those answers. So this relates to the non-compliance with the GOJEP portal requirements. And there was also, and I'm jumping a bit, but there was also a document from the Ministry of Finance related to the GOJP portal requirements, which, was that printed? Okay, I know it was sent via email. Ms. Blake, you have that as well? Okay, you sent that, and then we can go to that. But so this were the 20 contracts that were uploaded above the 10 million threshold sent internally by the University Hospital itself. Well, sorry, instead of me doing this, Mr. Hosing, could you just take us through the answers that you provided to us? Member Bunting, you have a question on this?
Yeah, I just want to point out to Mr. Chairman, we've been getting a lot of emails.
Right.
Some as recent as 9:53 a.m. this morning. So you'll have to help us guide us through the
9:53 one yet.
That was
that's the customs. Yeah. Okay.
So we've been getting quite a few emails with.
So the document I would start with is these answers that were provided by the University Hospital of the West Indies. So, Mr. Hosing, if you could just summarize, since we have the document, and just take us through the answers that you provided.
Okay, Mr. Chair. The first one is the audit findings, key findings 2, non-compliance with GOJEP portal requirements. with respect to 20 of the 800 contracts were the 20 contracts that were uploaded above 10 million threshold set internally by the UHII. Our findings, Mr. Chair, is that we identified that 23 were uploaded and not all 23 were above the threshold of 10 million. In fact, Mr. Chair, what I can say is that there was no consistency in the amounts, meaning that those that were put on, the 23, there were some above 10 million, there were some below 10 million. Of the 700 and plus that were not uploaded, some were above 10 million and some were below. In fact, for those that were not included, you had amounts up to 22 million that was not included, and it ranged from 500,000 to 22 million for those that were not included.
And the total value for those that were not uploaded is $1.6 billion.
$1.6 billion. Yes, Mr. Chair.
That is just totally unacceptable. I mean, 1.6 billion worth of... Now, I noted in the Ministry of Finance's response that there was some issue, Ms. Blake, I think you identified where, and you can correct me if I'm summarizing incorrectly, that after the contracts were issued, there is a process that is required on the part of the supplier to do something, and that was not... suppliers were not following through. Can you just update us on that so we can, and you indicated that I think efforts were being made to have a fix of that software system. Just bring the committee up to date on that, please.
Morning again, everybody. So the GoJEP system...
Just introduce yourself for the purposes of Hansard.
I'm Javel Barrett, Chief Public Procurement Policy Officer at the Ministry of Finance, and we operate the GoJEP system. The current system design and workflow requires that, that at the end of the process, the supplier must accept the award of contract in the system in order for the transaction to be closed out so that you can move towards publishing the contract award notice, which would then become available to the public. At present, you have some suppliers who are not following through and accepting the award in the system, even though they accept the award outside of the system and provide the goods, works, or services. We are fixing that, and that fix should be in place by June of this year.
Okay. And if the suppliers don't accept it, it means it cannot be uploaded to the system?
It won't be closed out, so it's in the system. So we have a lot of transactions that are in the system but not closed out, so it's not available to the public in terms of contract award notices.
Okay. Well, that's clearly a flaw because we shouldn't be depending on the supplier. Once the supplier has gotten in their contract, their primary business is to execute on the contract. They're not necessarily going to be focused on closing it out. Member C, right?
Just a quick one then, Mr. Barrett. So the response indicates that the procurement activity was not uploaded to GoJEP, largely due to, I guess, inconsistent use, limited awareness, slow adoption, probably of your ministry circulars and guidelines, rather than deliberate non-compliance. That's the impression I get. So can you clarify whether this reflects a transitional capacity issue across the broader public sector at this time, particularly in relation to training and rollout of GoJEP, and outline how the ministry has since moved to strengthen training, monitoring, enforcement to ensure that there's full compliance across the public sector?
All right. In some entities, there may be a capacity issue. But from the Office of Public Procurement Policy's perspective, we are constantly providing training, and we operate a customer service and advisory unit that is readily accessible and available to procuring entities to guide them through the process. We have manuals that are available to practitioners to go through, videos to go through, to show them how to do what is required. And so there isn't a shortage of training material for procuring entities, but I do understand the complaint from some practitioners is that they're doing a lot and they don't always have the time to upload the transactions into the system, especially for the ones that are not done through the system.
Are we moving to ensure that for the officers who have the responsibility to upload this, that this becomes part of a performance assessment or evaluation? Because, I mean, generally, if we don't measure things, they don't get done. And I think if we want to ensure that these things get done, then this must become part of the responsibility of the officer. And at the end of, the annual review, something like this is assessed to see to what extent the officer has complied with something which is a GOJ requirement.
Chair, so that would be the responsibility of heads of entities of each procuring entity to ensure that that is a part of the assessment for the public officers. But from a system perspective, one of the fixes that we intend to roll out is to have the system generate a certificate to say that you would have completed the transaction in GoJEP and let that certificate be a condition for payments for contracts, so that you must ensure that you complete the procurement process in the system before you can move towards making a payment on a contract.
Okay. All right, I see Member Brown and then Member Cockburn-Finn.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. Well, I wanted to start with just responding to, clarifying a point raised by Member Seabright. I believe I heard the last time we met Mr. Barrett that the ministry issued a circular in 2023 reminding the agencies about the requirement of uploading all required contracts to the GOJ. So apart from, training and the issues, there was, in the midst of what was happening, there was a reminder that was shared by the ministry. Was that the case?
Just keep on your mic.
Oh, sorry. That is correct. So the circular would have been shared across GOJ to heads of entities, and from time to time we continue to do continuous training, and we invite practitioners to participate in those training sessions. Again, we operate a very active and responsive customer service and advisory unit, which is available to procuring entities to guide them through the process. Generally speaking, the circulars are widely available on the Ministry of Finance's website. They're also available on the Office of Public Procurement Policy's website as well.
Thank you. Just for clarity as well, I note that and this was raised last time we met as well, and stated here in the response that the university hospital determined that their threshold for uploading would be 10 million. What is the required government of Jamaica's guidance in terms of what should be uploaded on the GoJEP website?
So the guidance requires that you use the GoJEP system to do all transactions above $1.5 million, subject to a few exceptions. Between $500,000 and $1.5 million, the guidance is that you don't have to use the system to do those transactions, but you have to manually enter that information in the system. So it is encouraged that you use the system for those transactions, but recognizing the potential inefficiencies in using the system for those smaller value transactions, the requirement is that you manually upload the information afterwards. So I cannot speak on the $10 million threshold that was set.
All right, but you're stating that it's 1.5 as it relates to the guidelines from the government of Jamaica?
Correct.
All right. CEO, I don't know if you could help us. Who made that determination as to this 10 million in the face of the guidance that would have come from the Ministry of Finance?
I was not there at the time, and I have seen no record as to any reason why they came up with this 10 million. But what I was informed is that during their testing phase, they decided to use 10 million, and they continued to use the 10 million, but they didn't use it consistently. So there was no consistency even with the 10 million. As I shared in the response, Mr. Chair, that even amounts below 10 million were put on GoJet, and those that were omitted from GoJet fell between 500,000 and 22 million. So there was nothing consistent at all in the manner in which GoJet was being used.
All right. So, well, the fact is, as we saw here, it's only 20 of 800 was uploaded, although the report adds 3 more. So what was uploaded is really negligible based on the total amount of contracts. But you said you weren't here, but the director behind you in terms of procurement, could he provide that guidance as to who would have approved that in terms of that 10 million threshold?
Yes, good afternoon. Good morning. The decision...
Just identify yourself, Mr. Buckridge.
Okay, my name is Ainsworth Buckridge, Senior Director of Public Procurement, University Hospital of West Indies. As the CEO mentioned, that 10 million came up in a pilot.
Use the mic closer to you.
In a pilot project. It was before the circular was sent out by the ministry. So it was a pilot phase that was thus continued straight through.
And you would have taken that decision as Director of Procurement. That's what I'm just trying to find out. If it was your decision, despite the 1.5, because I don't think the circular is what indicated the threshold that would have been communicated prior to that circular in terms of the GoJet. Who took the decision? That's just how to find out.
I can't recall who actually took that decision, but that decision was made basically.
But it was not you.
I could not single-handedly make such a decision.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. I am making that point overall, Chairman, because I see where the value of what was not uploaded is 1.6 billion. The fact that the threshold should be 1.5, we may have 1.5 million. In fact, we may have a greater amount than the 1.6 that was not actually uploaded. Would you agree?
No, Mr. Member. It is that 800 of the time period that the audit took place. Within that time period, there's 800 in total.
Yes.
And of that, the audit says 20 were uploaded.
Yes.
And 780 were not uploaded.
So this 1.6 represents the 780?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Chair.
Member Corporate.
And may I just add that, can I just add something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to note that as of March this year, we have made it mandatory that all, regardless of the amount, procurement must be placed on GoJet. It's not optional. There's no, the minimum is 0.
Yes, Member Corporate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the CEO just answered my question. Just reading here, it says GoJet platform was being used in an ad hoc manner. Now that we've seen where more training has been given to, and more awareness given to the different ministries, agencies. For clarity, I wanted to find out what is happening now with the GoJet platform. You just made that statement that it is non-negotiable. Is this platform now being used? We've been hearing for weeks now what's been happening at UHWI, and we would not want this to continue. And so for me, I want to know going forward if this is now being utilized right across the board, no matter what the amount is.
That is correct, member. And as you speak to training, we have carried out extensive training for not just the members of the procurement department, but for all senior managers, for all members of the procurement review committee and the procurement assessment committee. We have done some extensive training by a very well-known professional and knowledgeable person in that area.
And what about capacity? Because I keep hearing that over and over again about capacity. Do we have enough personnel to carry out the duties to make sure that this is, this stays in place?
There is an assessment being done. There are 1 or 2 positions that are vacant that we are going to fill, but we want to ensure that the department not just fill positions, but make sure that they're, the persons, the entire operation is working efficiently and effectively, and making sure the persons in the positions are in fact necessary and will drive efficiency, as you said, going forward. So what we have tried to do is to stop all that was happening that was not consistent with the government guideline, as well as what would be the most efficient way of operating. So we're looking even at systems to put in additional IT system. The chairman spoke earlier about, the last time, about ensuring, that certain technology is in place. It's not in place. Yes, it's not in place, but we are looking to put that in place.
What are the other systems that you're now putting in place as far as the board is concerned? Because I think some of the things the board were not aware. Are there things being in place now for the board as far as, to find out exactly what is happening, the reporting mechanism, what is happening with that?
Well, as I said, that the assessment and the implementation is now taking place. And so when that is finalized, we can certainly send something to the PAC to let them know exactly what are the things that we are going to be doing. But the board has set up a committee to look at the whole entire thing to see what we can do to improve on the report, because the board certainly has to will be given greater oversight of what is happening there, for sure.
And is there a timeline for that, for this assessment to be completed?
Okay, so as I shared, there is a committee separate to look at review of the staff based on the Audit General report, who should be held accountable and what action should be taken. And then separate from that, and that should come in by June. And also by June, we have various persons looking to see what improvement we're going to be actually contracting someone to do a full procurement assessment, a very well-known professional. Obviously, we'll have to look at, because we're going to go to tender, and we are putting that terms of reference and the tender document together now as we speak, to go to tender to have that reviewed by an individual or an entity out there that can qualify to do it, who's qualified to do it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chairman.
Member Seabright.
Thank you, Chairman. No, the GOJEP issue clearly speaks to implementation capacity challenges during a transition, as is normal in many public sector administrations throughout the world. And clearly, the real focus now should be on ensuring full and sustained adoption of the system across the board. And I've seen that work has been done. So to the permanent secretary, given that the UHWI cited insufficient training, limited awareness, and so on as key factors behind non-compliance, can the ministry advise what targeted procurement and GOJEP training programs have since been rolled out or will be rolled out, whether there's no requirement for continuous certification and so on, for procurement staff across the entire public health system, so we don't have a recurrence?
We do not have that issue in the Ministry of Health itself.
Yeah. And
we do have continuous training in procurement. For the regional health authorities, they from time to time need strengthening, but they're encouraged to take advantage of all the training opportunities by the Ministry of Finance and other agencies that provide these trainings.
Thank you. And to the CEO, the AG, of course, found after the fact procurement contracts between a weak adherence to procurement guidelines. Anyway, you said that these have been discontinued and that with a standard operating SOPs being finalized. Can you walk the committee through the new end-to-end procurement workflow, if possible, including planning, approval thresholds, GoChep usage, and so on, and that will directly address the issues raised in the audit?
Well, first of all, member, there is a mandate for strict adherence to the government procurement guideline, no deviation. And so that guideline relates to various types of purchases and how you do it and various limits and so on, which should be very difficult to go through here at this time. But it is strict adherence to the government's procurement guideline that we are following, and we are very firm on that, very strict on it and very firm on it. We are ensuring that we even go beyond that sometimes in terms of ensuring that we get 3 quotes for almost everything as best as possible. There are some quotes that would be difficult to get 3 if it is a sole distributor of a particular thing, like an elevator there, and a type of elevator that's the only person who is authorized to fix it, or some machinery in the hospital.
And CEO, as we focus on solutions, the audit also identified heavy reliance on manual paper-based systems, which is an issue in some arms of the public sector, which has contributed to missing files and weak accountability. So in your written responses, you confirmed that formal proposals for a digital records management system are now being developed, alongside efforts to recover and reconstruct files. Can you tell us where we are with the full digitization of the procurement and financial records? When will that be completed? Because that seems to be a huge issue.
That has to be something that we are going to have an assessment done to see what is the best system given our circumstances. So that will take time. However, as I said, I think what was mentioned by the Ministry of Finance before is that whatever the things that you put on GoJep will in fact provide you with some level of digitization or in terms of record keeping and so on. So GoJep is when I have done my assessment of it, is an extremely good system.
All right, can I just, in closing this issue, the Ministry of Finance, you had provided a response to the committee looking at the overall use of GoJeb in the public sector. Can you just provide us with that update?
Right. So the GoJeb mandate came about in 2022 by way of a guidance note from the Office of Public Procurement Policy, which was followed up by circular number 18 of 2023, which outlined that effective August 1st, 2023, all procuring entities will be required to execute procurement proceedings via GoJep as outlined in the guidance note. There were some exceptions, which includes procurements in situations of emergency or extreme urgency, procurements of a value between $500,000 and $1.5 million. However, those transactions, though executed, though you're permitted to execute them outside of the system, you are still required to manually upload the information in the system afterwards. The procurement of utility services, supply of electricity, supply of water, you're not required to use a system to procure those type of services. In addition to using GoJep, the Office of Public Procurement Policy also manages a procurement reporting system which requires procuring entities to provide details of procurements, of all procurement activity, whether exempt or non-exempt and regardless of value. And this was also outlined and reinforced to procuring entities in a guidance note in 2022 as well. Now, in terms of compliance generally with the requirement for use of GoJep, we assess what procuring entities tell us based on the reports submitted in the PRS reports, because in those reports they would tell us whether or not they're executing their procurements using GoJEP or not using GoJEP. Based on the PRS data that we have, it is indicating that 62.86% of transactions reported to us were being executed via GoJEP, leaving 37.14% not being executed by GoJEP. Now,
let me ask you, you have any way of independently verifying, apart from what the entities send to you, whether what they're saying is accurate or not?
Not at this time. What is required and will be enforced going forward is to ensure that we get the procurement plans from the procuring entities so that we match their transactions against what their procurement plans say. But at this time, we're not able to verify apart from what they say. But separately and apart from the PRS reporting system, when we look at the number of transactions in the GoJEP system itself, since the mandate, we're seeing over 94,000 transactions which have progressed to the contract award or evaluation stage, which tells us that there is significant and substantial adoption of the use of GoJEP to do procurements. But we are, as I indicated, having a challenge as it relates to the publication of contract award notices because of the requirement, in some cases, the requirement for the supplier to accept the award in the system.
Well, let me ask you, wouldn't you be able to cross-reference the data from the Office of the Public Procurement Commission? Because all contracts, particularly above a particular size, must go through that process to determine whether what is reported to you is in fact consistent with what the Public Procurement Commission would have.
Yes, we'll be able to do that cross-reference, but what I would say is that majority of the procurement transactions are at the tier 1 level, which do not require Public Procurement Commission or Cabinet approval.
Okay, meaning they are below the
threshold of $60 million now.
Okay.
So that's majority of the transactions are done without requiring PPC or Cabinet approval.
All right. I just think there has to be a better way to determine the use of the system apart from self-reporting, which is what exists right now. Right. Because you, as you have acknowledged, you have no way of verifying whether what is sent to you is actually accurate and consistent. And the government would have spent quite a bit of money implementing a system, not just the financial side, but for principles of accountability and transparency. And you need to be in a position to accurately know how well that system is being utilized. So I think it's something that has to be examined that puts you in a better position to determine the use of the system.
Yes, and some of the refinements to the GoJEP system that we are rolling out are aimed at helping us to better capture the data.
Okay. All right, that's a member clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And once again, let me apologize for being late. I'm looking at a document, Jamaica Custom Agency reference number PAK 252-601-141, assessment letter. It says that custom...
Wait, hold a second, member. Just in terms of order, what we're doing first is we're dealing with the questions that were answered by Yui, and then we're going to get to that, but we're just going through in order what the hospital has answered.
Okay, Mr.
But we'll
Chairman.
get to that, yeah. Member Bunting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Barrett, could you just explain, based on this, the reporting, the declarations made by the procuring entities, it seems curious that 63%, or the majority, almost two-thirds of contracts were executed via GoJEP. But those same two-thirds, in terms of number, only represent 22% of value. So even by their own declarations, it appears that the contracts, the larger contracts, are the ones that are not being done via GoJEP. And that seems counterintuitive to the instructions issued by the Office of Public Procurement Policy. Could you explain that? Or could you say how they explain that, these procuring entities?
All right, thank you. Now, we are in the process, or still in the process of analyzing the data. So we have a team going through the data, analyzing to determine what the root cause of this issue is, what is accounting for that significant value of procurements being executed outside of the system. I know that, generally speaking, petroleum-related procurements are not done using the system, and that accounts for a substantial value of procurement activities that, based on demand, it would be required to be used to use the system. But we are analyzing the data, and as soon as we are complete with that analysis, then we could provide you with a further update.
All right, let me move to the second issue, Mr. Hosing, the absence of procurement documentation. At the last meeting, it was said that there were 3 incidents of flooding or water damage which would have affected these documents. I've seen the response. What the response doesn't tell me, though, is whether the actual incidents which took place in October 2020, March 2022, and October 2025, whether those 3 flooding actually destroyed documents, damaged documents, or prevented the management from having access to the procurement documents.
Mr. Chair, based on our investigation, there was some damage. However, there was no destruction of any files.
All right, so in essence then, while there would have been damage would not have prevented you from having access to the file, even if the file got wet. So the flooding could not explain the absence of the files then.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
All right. You indicated that there were some corrective measures that have taken place to deal with the incidents of flooding. Can you indicate what those are and whether since October we have had any further problems with flooding or roof or water damage?
We have actually put in a drain to ensure water does not reach the building, or as it happened in the past, as well as we have repaired the roof of the building, and we have not seen any further problems with any flooding or water damage on that building. We have actually established a committee to investigate the files that you're saying that are missing, to find out what happened and how can we prevent this from happening again in terms of a proper accountability for files and documents and securing of the documents.
And since our last meeting and your own search, you haven't been able to identify any more of those procurement documentation?
No, Mr. Chair, but what we have done is we are using information from the finance department and other departments in the organization to reconstruct the files. And we are in the process of doing that as we speak.
Do you have a time frame as to when you think you'll be able to complete that process?
By the end of this month, Mr. Chair.
The end of April?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
For all the files that were previously missing?
The 22 files, yes, Chair.
Okay.
This is as best as possible with the information that exists in the various departments.
Okay. All right, I have Member Brown first, then Cuthbert, then Bunting.
Thank you, Chairman.
Then Clark.
You preempted in terms of, I wanted to find out from the CEO if since we last met, if they had found any of the missing documents, because I remember there were 51 missing, you found 28 and or 29, and then about 22 was remaining at a value of about 270 million, but you still haven't found
No member.
All right. PS, on this specific matter, the committee has heard of, systemic breaches at the University Hospital of the West Indies. And we have realized that there is not an absence of a ministry oversight. So these things would have been happening within that sort of framework. I saw where the minister quoted recently to say that the problem is not individuals, it's about a dysfunctional culture, to quote him. Is he saying, PS, I know you're new, but is he saying that the ministry is presiding over a system that engenders breaches routinely or by default?
I'm sorry, Chairman, I can't speak for the minister.
All right, PS. Again, I know you're new in this particular role, Permanent Secretary. But could you walk me through the systems that the ministry has as it relates to oversight and to detect procurement breaches, failure to publish or upload contracts, and as defined by the Auditor General, misuse of tax concessions? What is the system that the Ministry of Health have in place, not just for the University Hospital of the West Indies, but for all of your hospitals to catch and detect those sort of breaches?
Every single department or agency in the Ministry of Health is supported by an internal audit department. When the internal audits are done, copies of these audits are sent to the Permanent Secretary.
Okay.
And when I receive these, I can't speak for those before me, but when I receive these audit reports, I would immediately call the head of that agency, the internal auditor, and all those involved to look at the breaches, to respond to the queries, and to ensure that the procedures are followed.
All right, thank you. Again, these things would not have happened while you were there. But in the process that you have outlined before, do you also bring awareness to the minister of the report that the chief internal auditor would have shared with yourself as permanent secretary?
Yes, I would.
All right.
And in this case, I did.
You did. So it is safe to conclude that the permanent secretary that sat prior to you would have raised these issues with the minister since these things predated you, based on the process that is in place as it relates to the ministry's oversight?
I can't speak for P.S. Bryan.
Yes.
But I can speak for myself, and
yes,
this audit might have overlapped
yes,
his administration and mine.
Okay.
But the report came to the fore under my leadership. And what I did was that I took a group of people from the ministry, the chief internal auditor, among others, and we went and we sat with the team at the UWI, and we went over all of the along with the Auditor General Department, along with all of the queries.
Yes, but I understand that outside of the AG's report, which is what you're referencing, routinely, as a matter of course, the chief internal auditor, prior to the AG's audit, will, in terms of his, or it's a male, his own internal audit of the processes, will routinely raise those based on the process that you have outlined to the permanent secretary.
We get the reports.
Yes.
And in this case, once I was advised, I immediately called the internal auditor and asked him for all reports that he would have done up to that time.
Okay. Finally, is it reasonably, therefore, I know you are not in the seat before, to assume that your predecessor would have raised these with the minister, having received, not the AG's report, but having received the various egregious findings as shared by the Chief Internal Auditor, which he said he shared. It's reasonable to assume that the Permanent Secretary would have raised those.
Again, I can't speak, but knowing Pierce Bryan as I do, if the matters were brought to his attention, I'm sure that he would raise it to the minister.
Thank you.
Member Corporation.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't think we can say what was brought to the minister or the PS. Just listening to so many things that was happening at UHWI and persons not being aware of many things. And so I don't think we can, insinuate that the minister or the PS possibly knew. The fact that this Auditor General's report just came out, and you mentioned, PS, that this is probably overlapping. What I want to know, or what I think is persons, I think persons have taken advantage of a system that is supported by a culture that we have in Jamaica. The digitization process, I know that is something that is happening right across the board. And I know the Ministry of Health, they have gone on to take on modernization, digitization. Will the GoJEP system now that's in place, will that take care of the issues as far as the missing files? Will that help with what we have seen with so many 700 or 800 missing files just gone, and recovering some, but for the most part now you have to be doing a deep dive to try to put things together. Will this system that is now in place that you're formulating to make sure that this doesn't happen again, will this take care of we should even have files. This is 2026. We should be far ahead and not having all this paper where for a country where we have hurricanes, etc., and anything can happen. So what I want to know is, will the system take care of the missing files that we see happening now, going into the future?
Yes, member, GoJEP will in fact play a significant part in ensuring that the whole digitization, record keeping, record storage, will be very helpful. And in addition to that, we are going to be looking at other ways and means of digitizing and storage going forward. As I said, that assessment is to be done based on the overall procurement assessment of the entire hospital.
Member Bunting.
If I might, please.
Sure. Go ahead, Pierce.
Since my tenure, we have written to all heads of department and agencies, instructing that all procurement activities should be undertaken using GoJEP. And since my time, we have received requests from both the Office of Public Procurement and from the Integrity Commission advising us that some of our procurement activities are being audited on GoJEP. So in addition to the Auditor General, we're also audited by the Integrity Commission on some of our big major projects on the GoJEP platform.
I think that has to be, in spite of the circulars, has to be the standard that has to be implemented across all ministries, agencies, and departments. And as I said, the Ministry of Finance as the custodian would need to identify a way to determine accurately the compliance of the MDAs with the use of GoJEP for many different reasons. Member Bunting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, with reference to these physical paper documents that were damaged or lost in successive floodings, I seem to recall that even prior to GoJEP's implementation, University Hospital of the West Indies had spent over 500 million Jamaican dollars on a hospital information management system. This was, I can't remember the exact year, but this would have been before GoJEP was introduced, early 2020s. Is it that system never worked. It wasn't successfully implemented. What happened? Why wouldn't we be able to recover a lot of this procurement documentation from that hospital information management system, which would have preceded GOJEP?
HIMSS, as it is called, is actually a system that is for clinical services. It is not for, it does not include procurement or anything to do with procurement. Procurement is separate from HIMSS.
So that is, don't release your mic because, all right, so
Yeah.
that is what? Patient records and patient information?
Yes.
And billing as well.
Prescriptions, assessment, determination, what has happened to a patient, the billings and so on. Is
So
supposed to
all
be
the
happening.
patient-related records are captured in that system currently,
Yes.
but it was never intended to cover the administrative side?
No, not
No?
at this time, and we don't know if it's intended to do that. Procurement is separately under GOJEP and not HIMSS.
Okay, so separately from the patient management side, everything, the rest of the administrative system at the UN currently is a paper-based system?
No, we have other systems, like we have one named Great Plains and for accounting and so on, which will then work with HIMSS in terms of the receipting and the accounting for the funds that have been collected from patients. As you know, we are a fee-paying hospital.
So can I just intervene? So if I went to the university now and I sought a record on patient John Brown, you would be able to electronically indicate the history of his ailments, prescriptions, how much he paid, what is outstanding. All of that would be in this electronic system?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
It should be, and it is still being worked on and improved as we speak.
Are we running both manual and electronic at the same time, or are we fully electronic for patient records?
There is both at this time. Like, for instance, prescriptions, we are still trying to ensure that the prescription system aspect of it is working properly. So doctors are still writing prescriptions, manual, paper prescriptions.
I know, but something like that, for example, if a prescription is written for John Brown, the patient, is that uploaded to his electronic file so that record is there?
The information would be there on the system.
Okay. All right, I have member Cousins and Steve Wright.
Thank you, Chairman. In terms of the repairs to the flooded areas, I noted from your responses that you were unable to specify the dates when the repairs were conducted.
You asking me?
Yes.
Okay.
Have you since been able to ascertain those dates? And can you tell us what were the costs associated with those repairs?
Okay, I don't have the cost, but the cost for the first one was $1.4 million was for the first one in terms of the drain, and the roof
Sorry,
was...
1.4 million?
Million.
In October 2020. That's for October 2020?
Yes.
All right.
And that drain,
March
the drain.
2022?
Yeah, the drain repair was done in 2020. Yeah, it was done in 2020. We had a problem with the drain being blocked and the thing, but that now is being maintained, so it will not happen. So the second one happened because the drain had a blockage that has been dealt with, and then the roof repair was done since I think January or February of this year.
And can you say what was the cost or what procedure did you undertake to get the repairs done? Was it uploaded to GoGem? Simple, straightforward, because you were there. It shouldn't be difficult to ascertain.
Mr. Chair, I cannot stay here and tell you specifically the process. I know that the repair was done, and that even since then we have had some serious level of rain, and we have not had any leak taking place.
Earlier you said that since all of this has unraveled, you have ensured that every single procurement is uploaded to GoGem.
As at March 1, yes.
Okay. And this, you're saying the repairs preceded March 1?
Yes, it was done in January, February.
Okay. And we are unable to see the specific date in January, February this year that it was done.
I can get that.
And the value of the contract and to whom the contract was awarded.
I can definitely provide that information to you,
Chair. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I certainly will.
All right, Member Seabright.
Thank you. For the permanent secretary, clearly the issues are, of course, long-standing and systemic in nature and have run multiple administrations over the years. And that has gone on for over a decade. So in challenges like this, of course, it creates opportunities, and we have seen clear steps taken to include, of course, greater oversight by the ministry. We see ongoing investigations by the relevant authorities. We see where you're recovering the procurement files. Movement towards full GoJEP compliance is happening, and that's very good. And, of course, the development of standard operating procedures and a digital record system. So you're working to address the issues, and we'll commend you and the team at the UHWIF for the work that you're doing. Very, very happy about that. But for the Prime Secretary, is there any intention to reframe your oversight role over the UHWI, particularly given its unique governance arrangements? Is that something you're going to probably look deeper at?
Member, it is definitely something we need to look at, and the minister has formed a committee even before the report was made public. He knew about it. He immediately met with the chairman of the board, and I would suspect the board itself, and a committee was formed chaired by Mr. Howard Mitchell, and he was given 4 months in which to come up with recommendations to address these long-standing issues and these systemic issues that were highlighted in the audit.
And I would assume, PS, that they will have, after that 4 months, we'll have time-bound reforms being implemented to address the weaknesses across the board based on the performance audit.
The report, but I think that's a part of the terms of reference that timelines will be given to address some of these very pressing issues.
Thank you.
Mr. Hosing, can you say whether the university hospital has an up-to-date tax compliance certificate?
We have a tax compliance certificate that we are operating under now.
Is it up to date?
It expires on May 6th. It is, in terms of tax compliance, as I shared at the last meeting, that we are owing a significant amount of funds to the government for taxes.
What is the figure that is owed by the hospital to the government of Jamaica? No, man, go ahead. You're speaking to me.
Oh, sorry.
No, man, go ahead.
It is in excess of the amount owing to TAJ and other agencies is in excess of $40 billion.
40 billion?
That is correct.
40 billion?
B billion.
40 billion that is owed to TAJ. Can you say of the 40 billion, how much of that would represent deductions taken from employees' salaries for things like NHT, NIS that have not been paid over to the respective agencies?
Just to clarify, Chair.
Yes, please.
That the 40 billion include interest and penalties.
So if you take out interest and penalties, what would that figure be?
It was approximately $18 billion.
18 billion, the same as the tax package for this year. Over what period do you have an age of that debt? Meaning, how long has that debt been running for?
I don't have the exact date, but it has been over several years.
All right. It would be important for us to know, particularly on the employee side, because this would impact people who might go to NHT seeking a benefit, people who are retired and would go to the NIS office and can't get a benefit. I would want to know what percentage of that represents those deductions not paid over.
I can give you we can provide the details, Mr. Chair, but just to let you know that in fact...
Go ahead.
Just to let you know, Mr. Chair, that we are now current with our payment for NIS and NHT. So every month we are paying that amount. However, we don't have enough money to pay the other tax obligations.
Is there a payment plan that has been worked out with TAJ?
No, Mr. Chair.
So you have no payment plan, but you say you have an up-to-date TCC without a payment plan?
We have a temporary TCC, Mr. Chair.
And that holds for how long?
Until May the 6th.
And you anticipate that is going to be renewed in the absence of a payment plan to deal with the outstanding sums?
I cannot say, Mr. Chair.
All right. Well, I'm asking you to provide for the committee an aging report of that outstanding amount and how much of it would reflect the employees' contributions not paid over, and whether that would impact current employees who might want to access an NHT benefit, for example, and retired employees who might want to access their NIS benefits.
May I just add, Mr. Chairman, just to make sure there's no misunderstanding, as we speak, no one has had a problem in accessing their benefits because we have made arrangements, and no one has been denied a benefit based on our record for both NIS and for NHT.
All right. Well, I still need to know what that outstanding sum is.
I can provide that, Mr. Chair.
All right. Member of Parliament Fitzjackson is here, and just for the purposes of the committee, any member of Parliament can come to a committee, can ask a question, but would not have voting rights. Would not have voting rights. No, I sought the guidance of the committee clerk, that the member can ask a question but would not have voting rights.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, okay, hold on. Can I, Madam Legislative Clerk?
He can participate. Read it.
Yeah, no, I'm not making it up because I asked the clerk. I know. Could you ask the clerk to be here?
I wonder why these members want to gag me in the parliament. I wonder why.
Member Jackson, hold for me, please. Just release your mic. Member Jackson, release your mic. Sorry, I'm going to ask the committee clerk, because I did before in relation to members of Parliament who are not members of the committee. Could you indicate? You said a non-member can ask questions, right? Yes. Indicate so, because they're indicate so. Go ahead. No, because I told you. Go ahead.
Yes, a non-member of the committee can attend the meetings. They can ask questions. They just can't vote or have any input in the decision making. Yes. Yes. With the permission of.
Is that, wait, I'm asking a question. Is that, Mr. Chairman, with the permission of the members of the PAC, or is that unilateral decision by the chairman to invite anyone? Because if we knew that, then we would have probably invited some of our members. What is, please explain to us, is that a unilateral decision? Or is that a decision that should be made by the committee members? I'll be guided by your answer.
It would be with the permission of the committee, but the committee does not need permission. A member does, over the years that I've been here and it has been practiced, no member has needed permission to attend a meeting. They just need permission to participate, and they can't make any form of input in terms of decisions.
And so, Mr. Chairman, members, and so, Mr. Chairman, what I like order. I like order. And so I would want to find out, is it the permission from us, the members, in advance, or to just allow someone to come in and then ask our permission and vote on that to find out if that member can participate?
Okay, the member can attend the meeting. In order to participate, the permission of the committee has to be sought by the member, and the committee has to give their consent for the member to participate.
Right, so that permission was not sought, Mr. Chairman, by you to ask us if the member of parliament can participate.
So having been guided by the clerk.
You don't just ambush a committee meeting like that, Mr. Chairman. You don't just ambush a committee meeting like that. And I will not stand for that. As a member, I will not stand for that. We are a parliament of law and order. And if we're going to do something, do it by the books. And so you can ask our permission, but I'm not going to participate in something like this where you allow someone to just come into a meeting, a member of parliament, to just come in and open his mic to ask a question. No, that is improper.
I sought the guidance of the committee clerk when I saw Member Jackson come in. And the guidance of I sought the guidance of the committee clerk when I saw Member Jackson, and the committee clerk indicated that a non-member could come to a committee meeting, could participate, but would not enjoy the rights of a member. Right? 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 Are we? Huh?
So, Mr. Chairman, you bring Member Jackson here to mash up the meeting. All right. You just leave it then.
Members, let me move to audit. So, Mr. Hosing, you're saying you'll provide for us a breakdown of the outstanding taxes in terms of what employees have remitted, not paid over, but you're categorically stating that no person has been denied a benefit because of the outstanding amounts.
Yes, Mr. Chair, based on the information I've received, none has been denied a benefit.
Okay. And you will, if you could provide for us, you said 18 billion is a substantive amount.
Approximately.
And interest and penalties would carry it up to 40. Are there discussions with the TAJ about whether writing off interest and penalties and moving to some kind of payment plan to settle the substantive amount?
We are going to be approaching the ministry and then from there to the Ministry of Finance, because we have sought guidance from TAJ and they said this is something we'd have to speak to the Ministry of Finance about.
Has that been done, or has there been formal correspondence with the Ministry?
Not as yet. This was recent, and we will be speaking first to our ministry, and then the ministry and ourselves will then approach Ministry of Finance.
And the temporary, so you have always operated with what you call a temporary TCC. Is that correct?
No, Mr. Chair. we were, as an entity, using the TCC, as is in the Auditor General's report, of the University Hospital private wing. And since January of this year, we have been importing items through the Ministry of Health. We recently received a temporary TCC because of the nature of our business and the urgency in terms of the medicines and so on that we need to import into the island, and the speed at which we need to get it in.
So how long has the hospital been operating without its own TCC?
I don't have a date, Mr. Chair, but it has been for a long time.
There are persons behind you who should be able to assist us with that question?
The persons are here, but they too don't have the information as to when was the last time we had a TCC, and but it has been several years.
So, so let me understand. Without a TCC, does that prevent the university hospital, for example, for importing items on its own behalf?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So would that give rise to the use of the tax-exempt status to be provided to third-party companies to import items on behalf of the university hospital?
My apologies, Mr. Chairman. I was a little distracted by some...
Members, please.
But if you can repeat your question, I'll attempt to answer.
Is, without a TCC, can the University Hospital of the West Indies import items on its own behalf?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so it is very important to find out how long the university has been operating without the TCC. And my follow-up question is, given that you are unable to import items on your own behalf, would that give rise to the use of the tax-exempt status being provided to third-party companies to bring items in on behalf of the university hospital?
No, it should not.
It should not?
Under no circumstances should the hospital use its tax exemption certificate to import items for any party, third party, even another ministry or anything. It must only be solely based on the requirement. It is supposed to be only for the use of the hospital and items purchased by the hospital.
All right. How long has the hospital been using the TCC of the private wing of the UHWI for?
As I said, Mr. Chair, I'm unable to say how long. It has been several years. I can get that date for you and provide it.
Yes, that's important. Yeah.
And I can also, as I stated, I will do that.
Okay. Member Cuthbert Finn, then Member Brown.
I just wanted to point out, I'm very happy to know that no citizen of Jamaica will be denied their NIS or NHT benefit. And as you stated, that whatever was in arrears were paid up. Is that?
No, we are current, and we have been current for some time now with the payment for NIS and NHT. What we are behind in is the income tax and the obligations by the hospital itself in terms of education tax and so on.
Okay, because Mr. Chairman, even though we're speaking here about UHWI, I know that this is something that has occurred right across Jamaica, where there are various companies robbing the Jamaican people and not paying over the NIS or NHT. And then, when these people become, pensionable or older, they're not able to receive. They go to try to buy a home. They're not able to receive their NHT. So I'm happy to know that the citizens of this country who were employed will not be denied their benefits. Thank you.
Member Brown?
Chairman, I just wanted to, in the issue of the misuse of the tax exemption status, could the Director of Procurement, Senior Director of Procurement, walk us through the procurement phase from when the need was identified at the hospital for that good or goods? Walk us through the phase from that stage right through to when the customs broker actually starts to enter the documents into the system, the Akisuda system.
Yes. As it relates to the procurement unit receiving a request, a purchase requisition, meaning the need has been identified. That information is logged on our in-house web portal. Once that information is logged, then it is disseminated to a procurement officer based on what the item is and the estimated cost. Based on the item and the estimated cost, then we would determine, the procurement officer would determine the procurement methodology that they would use. Once they have determined the procurement methodology, it is uploaded on GoJep. Once it is uploaded on GoJep and it is closed out on GoJep in terms of the tendering period, that information is pulled down. The file the physical file is then prepared and forwarded to finance and the CEO for approval. Once that approval has been received, then the purchase order will then be prepared. Once that purchase order is prepared and signed off on, if it is something that is to be imported in the country, that information now will then be forwarded to the contracts department.
Forwarded to the contracts department.
Yes.
And then its source, a bidding process starts, or the PO would represent the document based on the entity that would have won the bidding.
Yeah, because the PO would state that we have accepted their offer.
All right. So when the entity, if the good is being imported, because that's how the tax exemptions issue comes up. When the entity brings the goods in, walk us through that process, what the customs broker does.
That is for the contracts department. I'm not a part of the contracts department.
Is there anybody here from that department who can help us?
No, we don't have anybody from the contracts department. But again, this is if the person is importing their items to sell to the hospital, they would deal with that strictly.
No, man, it's the hospital thing I'm talking about. Not
if the hospital wants to import something itself, then we will use our broker to bring in those items.
And that's what I'm asking.
Yes.
So when the goods arrive,
yes,
the PO is utilized, right, in terms of clearing from the port.
Yes.
Is it that the broker representing the university, whatever is in the university's name at the customs department is placed into the framework of the tax exemption status? Are you so aware that that has been the practice for many years? And in fact, it may not only be the four, but it may be many private companies because of the process. Are you aware of that, or do we need to have a previous CEO who may help us with that understanding?
Yes, you would have to speak to someone from that time as to what may have happened outside of the normal procurement procedure, because that would not be a part of the normal procurement or the required procurement procedure. And
what we're dealing with here, we are seeing that almost everything is abnormal based on the university's operations. No, the breaches are very clear and egregious, but as you said, someone else before your time would need to help us. And if an anomaly were to emerge during that process, if it is that routinely all the goods that come in, once they reach the port, the custom brokers, and they are in the name of the University Hospital of the West Indies, the custom broker then incorporates that under the umbrella of the university's tax exemption status. If an anomaly were to emerge or the custom broker points out that these are not ours, who approves the process continuing?
All importation, member, has to be approved. It's not the broker just see the name, the hospital, and clear.
So somebody will have to approve it.
The authorizing bodies within the hospital would have to provide certain customs document signed, certain custom document for the item to be cleared.
Okay. Thank you. So you can't really speak to the established way of work prior to your time?
It is the way that should take place, is that all, because there are certain custom forms that must be signed by an authorized person within the entity, and it's not as a carte blanche. Anything with the name, you can actually just clear, and the broker doesn't do that.
Okay. Again, I'll say, Mr. Hostin, is that there are a lot of shoulds. We have been sitting here and hearing what should happen and what did not happen based on what should have happened. And we are glad to hear, as member Steve Wright and member my colleague and neighbor Cuthbert has pointed out, we are glad to hear all the restorative, remediative, all the fixing that yourself and our good newly PS is conducting. But we are wanting to understand why is it that these things happened before, and we want to get the facts. So thank you very much, sir.
Member Corporate Finn.
Thank you, Chairman. I guess, I'll just reiterate what I says. Persons have taken advantage of a system, a system that's how Jamaica run. And that's what we're looking at. So there's absolutely no excuse. And I would want to find out, why would I, a private company, approach UHII to use their tax exemption? I mean, wouldn't that be the case where the private entity would have to approach UE some sort of a way in order to get the tax exemption? Because why would UE approach the private entity to say, hey, would you like to use my tax exemption? I think that is the question for me. That is a question for me, really. That is a question I would want to ask. And secondly, I would want to find out if there is such a convention. I hear it in the news, and I heard persons saying that there is some sort of a convention regarding the use of UHII tax exemption. Is there such a convention? And if there is that now done with? That is what I would want to find out. So there are those two questions. Is it that the 4 companies in question approached UHII to utilize their tax exemption? Or was it UHII who approached these companies to say, hey, would you like to use my tax exemption? And secondly, is there a convention that we're hearing in the news regarding the use of UHII tax exemption?
Member, I cannot say who approached who in the cases that you mentioned, the 4 cases, who approached who. I'm unable to say. Are the 4 that I am aware of. And I have not seen, I do not know of any convention or any agreement or any policy that allows the hospital to breach custom guidelines or the government guidelines.
Sir.
Also, I think, we have to also look, we're talking about customs. Yes, UHII was the name of on the declaration. However, there was a separate address, and I think we need to bear that in mind and keep that in mind, that there was a separate address. I'm not sure if you're at the place where are we at that place now, Mr. Chairman?
You can ask your question. Go ahead.
I wanted to find out, I think, and I'm more concerned because the other entities, they're not a part of the parliament. And there's one company in particular that the member is a member of the parliament. And so that is of concern to me as a member of parliament. And so what I want to find out is, there's certain things we saw as far as the declaration, and I think we got something from customs that the declaration was false under the Jamaica Customs Act Section 209, that the invoice had UHII as the importer, and UHII's national code was used in this instance to evade paying duties. That is, I think, what customs sent to all of us. I think I got that yesterday in my mail. I think also one of the companies in question, Jack then mentioned, I heard on the news, and I think I listened to a report and I listened to the chairman who also mentioned on a radio station that the company Jack then paid back a sum of $10,089,921.22. I don't know if you can answer that. Was that paid to customs or was that money paid over to UHII to pay customs, since UHII was the name on the bill and a separate address from UHII? That is my question. Thank you.
We did not receive the amount that you stated, member. And in fact, customs have informed us that they received the amount, but it was not UHII who paid the amount.
All right, Member Cousins.
Thank you, Chairman. My question goes back to the issue of the tax compliance certificate. And it's quite interesting, Chairman, when you consider that UWE was utilizing the tax compliance certificate of the private wing of the hospital. For a number of years, it appears. In fact, many of the items that were brought in using the tax exemption status were resold to UWE. And I'm now wondering, and I don't know if I can get some clarity, whether or not it was the absence of that tax compliance certificate, right, and the fact that you couldn't get it in through UWE's TCC, the private wing's TCC, that you had to go this route. And it just shows how dangerous it is when you have entities in Jamaica, you have a lot of private persons who now are dragged before the court because them who are a little bit of tax compared to UWE. And we're sitting here talking about $40 billion in taxes as if it is nothing. So, was it the absence of this tax compliance certificate? No. Remember, don't do that. Answer question. Have respect, man. Don't do that. Answer question. That, and it's a very important question. Because now, hearing that there was no TCC, it causes me to wonder if this is a loophole or a lacuna that was employed by UWE to import items, and now when these individuals and their companies are called into question, they're being thrown underneath the bus. So, is it a case where because of the absence of the TCC, UWE engage these companies, and then that would explain why you had a buyback at 10 times at what was imported? Yeah, man, 10 times. And it is documented here, so remember, you need to consult the findings. It's not a buyback. So there was a buyback of crockery. Remember? Mm-hmm. And you have 4 companies, not just one, and we don't know whether or not any of the other 4 have anything to do with members in this house. So I don't know why we're zoning in on one. And the one in question of the four did not make any attempt, and you can confirm, to sell back anything to UA. So, could you confirm whether or not the absence of the TCC was the rationale or the basis for engaging these companies to use the tax exemption status?
Mr. Chairman, member.
Go ahead. You can talk to me. Just direct the answer to me.
All right, Mr. Chairman, there is no basis, absolutely no basis, upon which anyone, any entity at the hospital or anywhere else should be breaching government guidelines for any reason at all. Absolutely no reason. And I cannot...
Members, let's speak on the mic. You remember at the beginning I indicated I understand the limitations that the acting CEO is in, which is why we agreed at the beginning of the meeting that the substantive CEO and the previous CEO and the previous chairman would be brought here so that they can provide guidance and answers. We appreciate the corrective measures that are taking place, but there still needs to be accountability for what took place. And I know you can't answer questions that predate you, but this particular one is one which needs an answer, even if you can't provide it. So we'll have to come back to it. But Member Clark had his mic up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I listened to my colleagues before. I listened to Member Cuthbert Flynn and I listened to Member Cousins. My question through you, sir, to the PS or Mr. Eric. On what ground, what condition, what authority that some goods that were brought in the name of UE Hospital, that a third party, a private entity, would have gotten the authority to pay duty on behalf of UE? Is it that is there a condition in place for things like that to happen?
I will. Again, the question is directed to the acting CEO.
Mr. Chairman, since being there, we have made no arrangement for anyone to pay anything on behalf of the hospital.
So on what grounds did this company, Jack Den, paid over $10 million to Custom accepting that money in the name of UE, because the goods belongs to UE?
The goods did not belong to UE.
It didn't, but it is in the name of UE.
And just to clarify, UE in all four circumstances did not sell anybody anything, because you can't buy back if you didn't sell or give to somebody, right? So it's not a buyback. I just want to make sure there's no misunderstanding.
I just want my colleague to understand that it's not a buyback. I just want my colleague to understand that it's not a buyback.
Mr. Hossain, continue. Answer your question.
Mr. Chairman, through you, sir, I'm still waiting to hear the answer. Because $10 million were paid, $10.8 million was paid to Customs. The goods that is in question has a third party to it, because it is a third party check or cash that was used and not UE. How is it that was done?
I don't know. You'd have to speak to Customs.
So we would have to get Customs here.
You'd have to
so
get
we
to
can
Customs.
ask,
I don't know.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we may want to ask Customs, how is it that they would have accepted a third party check or cash to pay for goods that is in the name of another client, customer. The next thing, the document here, page 5, false declaration. UE is cited for false declaration in breach of Section 209 of the Custom Act. And they have advised UE that they can object to the situation. But before they can object, Mr. Chairman, they have to make a deposit. I am asking, through you, sir, to the persons here, have you formulated an objection since? And if so, did you pay over to custom that deposit that will guarantee you that the objection will be accepted?
No objection has been formulated or prepared. And as we shared initially, there is nothing that we have made any arrangements with customs to object to their assessment here.
So how is it that $10.8 million was paid over?
You would have to speak to customs and to whoever paid that money.
So again, Mr. Chairman, that is another question that has to be asked. Mr. Chairman, I will yield here until another question to somebody else.
Before Member Morrison comes in, there is the report on one entity. Has Customs done a similar report for the other three companies in question?
We have not received any other report, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Member Morrison.
Thank you, Chair. Could you kindly establish the nature of the relationship between Huey and Jacqueline that would cause Jacqueline to benefit from this waiver? And is this the first instance? That's the first part of the question.
The nature of the relationship between Huey contractual relationship is one where Jacqueline provides us with porters, janitorial services, and really at the hospital. What was your next? Was there another question?
Is this the first instance?
I do not know of any other instance other than what is reported in the Auditor General's report.
Okay. The second part of my question. Are patients from Huey sent or referred to Jacqueline for any type of service? Dialysis, maybe? So.
We have no record of that happening.
There's no record?
No, none.
Because that part of the information would be very useful. If there are patients from Huey, the University Hospital of the West Indies, whom, for whatever reason, are sent to Jacqueline for particular services. I'm trying to establish a history, a pattern, a relationship between the hospital and Jacqueline.
We are not aware of that.
To establish maybe the reason Jacqueline or someone saw it fit, or the hospital saw it fit, to allow Jacqueline to benefit from this provision. Thank you, Chair. That's my question.
Mr. Hosing, you can answer that, or you...
I am not aware of any such arrangement or agreement, and I have not seen any documentation to speak to anything of that nature.
Could you ask, in your capacity as the CEO of Customs, since they have done one report, could you ask them for a timeline as to when they intend to do the reports on the other three entities that were cited in the Auditor General's report?
I can ask, Mr. Chair, but they have already told me that this is an ongoing investigation and assessment, and that they will be coming back to me in a timely manner. That's what they have told me when I spoke to them about that.
Okay. Member Brown?
Just finally, in terms of what Member Morrison had said.
Members, please.
Yeah. Well, Member Morrison, I just want to ask one additional question around her questions. Is there any MOU, which would have predated you, may not be signed, that the legal department of the University of the Hospital of the West Indies could have had in its possession between that they were reviewing between themselves and Jack Den?
My legal officer is right behind me, and he has just reconfirmed, because he has told me before, there is no such agreement that he is aware of, and no one else in the hospital in the senior management is aware of any such agreement that was being reviewed, prepared, or anything of that nature. He joined in 2024.
Member Clark.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. By the way, a question. Does Mr. Chairman, does UWI has a custom broker on retention, or each time you have something imported, you just call willingly a custom broker? An established one is there?
We have an established, because there's a procurement process to engage a custom broker.
In this scenario, was it the UWI custom broker that did the clearance of this particular?
Based on the information provided to me by customs, and they share with me, no, it was not our custom broker.
Mr. Chairman, something wrong.
Well, you are here for the first time. There are many things wrong, and that is why we have asked persons who would have been here before to appear before us so that we can get answers to some of these questions. There are many things wrong. There are many things egregious. There are many things that can't be explained. No. I am not going to just accept. I accept the work being done to correct, and we accept that. But there has to be accountability for what took place. And understanding the limitations of the current team, that's why we have asked the previous teams who would have been party to these happenings, so to speak, to come before us to provide explanations. I want to move on, but all right, go ahead, Member Cousins.
Thank you, Chairman. That's a very interesting topic in terms of the TCC tax exemption status. Does UWI, can you confirm whether UWI owes Jack Den any monies for dialysis services?
No, we have not received any invoice from Jack Den for dialysis services.
All right, thank you. All right, I want to come back to procurement, and there is a particular contract that I would like some information on. The university employed 2 consultants, one to do, I believe, a strategic plan, and another consulting firm. The name of the firm is William Pragmatic Limited. Can you indicate who the principals of this company are, what their experience in the field of whether it's strategic planning, operational plan, etc., their track record in providing the kind of services, and whether it is a local company or overseas company?
William Pragmatic is an entity out of Canada, and the agreement, as I shared the last time, was found and shared with the Auditor General's department, and the payments, as I shared, is $90,000 US, approximately $90,000 US.
Who are the principals, and what's the experience of this company in providing the services that they were contracted for? Now, Mr. Hosting, the reason I'm raising this, 50% of a sum was paid, $98,000 US, about 15.5 million Jamaican dollars. No work was done for about 18 months. There was no engagement with the university hospital. The Auditor General goes in And after the Auditor General goes in, a draft report is provided, a contract is signed after the fact, when monies were paid 18 months ago. So you understand why that would raise many red flags. So I want to know the basis on which this company was engaged. They must have had some bona fides in terms of the experience that they have in this area for them to be engaged in this type of activity.
The principals is Mr. Winston Butler and Odine Williams.
And what is their experience in this type of activity, whether it's strategic planning, turnaround management? What do they bring to the table that would have allowed the university hospital to engage them in the first place?
I don't have that information with me, Mr. Chair, but we can do an investigation.
But if they were engaged, and again, you may be limited, but the university hospital must know. I mean, you don't randomly go there and just engage a consulting company without determining whether they have the experience to do the job or not. And the reason it raises a red flag is nothing was done before the Auditor General's report. No engagement, no workshop, no nothing. And then as soon as the Auditor General's report is done, a draft report comes in, and then a contract is signed almost 18 months after you pay this company $15.5 million. I can only conclude that there was never any attempt to do anything.
Can I just answer that,
yes,
Mr. Chair? Just to note that the work and the correspondence between the hospital and William Pragmatic was ongoing. No report, the draft report, yes, was received after the Auditor General's report. But work was taking place in terms of communication and information gathering. Also, just to let you know,
what were the deliverables that were, when you make a deposit, you would indicate to the consulting firm that in 2 months we expect deliverable A, deliverable B, yes, deliverable C. What was that?
They were late in delivering. They're late in delivering, but there is also a problem on the hospital side that did not provide them with certain information that they required. Also to note, Mr. Chairman, the contract, just to think, Mr. Chairman, the contract was not signed after the Auditor General report, or even, it was signed before. It was, as I shared at the last meeting, it was signed after the monies were paid. That much as I shared before, but it was signed before the Auditor General's report.
All right, well, help me. Can you tell me when was the deposit paid to the company? And then when was the contract signed? And when was the first deliverable provided to the university hospital?
It was signed on the 29th of September 2024.
The contract was signed?
Yes.
When was the payment made?
The payment was made before that, but I can get the exact date for you.
And when was the first deliverable received?
In February of this year.
Okay. So signed September 2024.
In 2024, yes.
Payment would have been made prior to September 2024, and first deliverable was February, almost a month ago, 2026.
Yes.
And you don't consider that unusual?
I would say, Mr. Chairman, that different persons may consider that depends on the agreement and what was agreed.
We would like to see that. Well, that's why I'm asking what a contract would have outlined deliverables, specific time frames, etc. If there are mitigating circumstances, then you would need to see something documented to say they couldn't deliver because of X, Y, Z. They sought information from the university hospital but couldn't receive it, but nothing.
No, we did not receive anything before that we have on record. Nothing until February of this year.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to follow up. The first thing you received this year was a draft, you said. So I want to know when will you really get what it is that was in the TOR? When will you get what you when will you get what you requested? Is there now a timeline? You said the first deliverable was February. Will they execute in its entirety with what the contract stated?
There's certain information that they have requested that I now have to get the board's approval to share with them. Because, I can get the timeline for you, but they have made some requests that we have to get the board's permission because they want copies of the board records. One of the things they asked is the board records, and that I would have to receive permission from the board, to share that information with the firm.
Was that in the contract, in the terms of reference? Was that a
It
part
was.
of?
It was.
Member Bunting?
Since, Mr. Chairman, the deposit, 50% deposit was paid prior to the contract signing, could Mr. Hosin, when he's providing the date of the deposit, also provide what was the basis of that deposit? Was there a proposal before contract? And could we see a copy of that proposal? And would that proposal have been accompanied by a capability statement of this William Pragmatic? And could we see that capability statement?
Mr. Chair, just a correction. The finance person, Ms. Dover, just informed me that, in fact, they signed on the 29th and payment was made on the 30th, not before the 29th.
You have to make sure whatever you provide to us is accurate, because what we heard last week and now is different. So you're positive, you can confirm for sure that a contract was signed and then payment was made the following day. You can say that definitively, or you want to check and get back to us?
I'll go and double check, Mr. Chair, but that's the information I just received from my finance senior officer.
Mr. Chairman, notwithstanding the changing dates we're getting, I would still like to see what was the basis of the proposal and what was the capability statement that informed the decision to choose this company.
That, as I said, Mr. Chairman, we will get that information and provide it to you. I do have a copy of the payment that was made on the 30th of September here with me, Mr. Chair. But we'll get everything together and submit to the PAC, Chair.
All right. In your answers to questions, the analysis of UWI procurement methodology impaired by limited data, you indicated 8 companies and a breakdown of 431 million divided by the 8 companies. Can you say it for these 8 companies whether in these cases contracts were signed prior to work being done, or were contracts signed after work was being done for the 8 companies that the UA paid 431 million to?
We are not able to say, Mr. Chairman, if in fact work was done prior to the persons being contracted at this time. And this 430 did not highlight that anything was done before the contract by, I think, the Auditor General.
So you can confirm then that the work was done after contracts were signed?
I don't want to confirm that, Mr. Chairman. I'll have to do some further investigation.
And get back to us on that.
For that, because that was not something highlighted.
Okay. The second thing related to a concern was raised about 681 million spent on consultants and the fact that it didn't involve proper procurement processes, direct award, and missing documents, procurement breaches. We have a breakdown of the $686 million among 6 companies. Again, can you confirm whether in the case of these 6 companies, whether contracts were in place prior to the awarding, whether contracts were in place prior to work being done, and whether the university hospital can indicate satisfactory completion of what these consultants were engaged to do?
The amount that the 681, Mr. Chair, the Auditor General didn't state that what you're saying was the case with these.
No, I'm asking.
Oh, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
no misunderstanding.
Yeah, man, I'm asking.
I don't have any information to say yes or no to what you are saying, but we can again provide that information.
That's very important because these were flagged as having procurement-related issues, and it is important for us to know the process. In one case, Supreme Laundry Services for almost $500 million. The bulk of that, it does say national competitive bidding here, so I assume there would be documentation to support this particular process.
Yes, and the payment is not a one-off payment. It is payment over, because they do provide laundry service for the hospital, and this would be a payment over a time period.
All right. Coming now to... There were a number of other services provided, coming to that total about $1.4 billion. These seem to be standard, in some cases, medical gas, LPG, etc. In the case of, for example, medical gas, and I think IGL is listed here as the provider, are these rolling contracts that are rolled over on an annual basis or every 2 years? What's the process here?
What happened is that the contract expired, and you'll see from the information to your right on that chart, the date of when it was expired. And what happened is that even after expiration, payments were made based on services provided.
And are new contracts in place for these providers? Because obviously you need gas on a continuous basis to run the hospital. So once we must know the date at which a contract is expiring, and you would put in place a new contract so that the service can continue.
Not in all cases. We are in fact in the process of having approval, going through the approval process for contracts with some of these persons, but not all of them we have current contracts in place for.
Could you say which ones the process has started for the renewal of these contracts? I think there are about 8 or 9 companies that are listed here.
The security contract is being processed and is to be submitted to Cabinet along with dietary services to Cabinet.
Okay.
Also, the maintenance one is out, ground maintenance is out for, it is being processed. Civil works maintenance is being also submitted for approval.
Can I have a related question while not from the documentation? I understand the university hospital just built a new car park. Can you indicate what the process is for the payment of funds for people who park in the car park and how that is managed by the university hospital?
Okay, let's repeat the first part.
That there's a new car park which has been established at the university hospital. I want to know what is the process by which payment is made from persons who utilize the car park and how those monies are managed by the university hospital.
Okay, so the funds received, there's a ticket that the person will receive when they enter the car park, and when they are exiting, they will pay based on the schedule of payments, based on the number of hours that they would have stayed in the car park. And those funds are then used in a part of our general funds that we receive from various places.
Who was collecting the money on behalf of the university hospital? When somebody comes into the car park, who was collecting the money?
Currently, the security guard collects the funds. We are in the process of establishing a payment area where a UHWI staff member will be the one to collect all monies from the car park. And that should be in place by by sometime in May. We are working on getting it done quickly.
So what is the system that the University Hospital would use to reconcile, for example, 100 cars came in, payment would have been received for the equivalent? How is that reconciled?
It is based on the records in terms of the slip the person received and what the person paid. We are auditing. The fact is that there is a serious concern as to how strong and robust that system is, and that is why we are changing with haste to have the funds collected by our normal receipting system that we have at various points in the hospital.
I mean, you're using diplomatic language, but if you are depending on security personnel to collect it, a security guard that would not be his substantive responsibility. It raises questions about whether you are collecting the full amount that you should be collecting, and whether on a daily basis there is reconciliation to determine that 100 cars use the car park, and as such for X amount of hours, and as such what is due to the university hospital is X amount. It sounds to me like that system doesn't exist and you're now moving to put that in place. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I was going to say patty shop, but I don't want to disrespect people who operate and do so very well locally and internationally. But I must confess, I mean, it beggars belief that in this day and age we couldn't have a better system just to manage something like this. It is just symptomatic of the broader problems at the university, that you could have a car park without a proper system and you have no way of determining whether you are collecting the full amount of money that you should be collecting. Member Brown?
Thank you. Just two final areas I wanted clarity from. Senior Director of Procurement. 64% of the contracts, as was outlined by the Auditor General in her findings, were either through direct awarding or direct single source or direct awarding. Who took that decision?
If it is single source or direct, you have a threshold that will determine that.
No, based on the responses here, you have 24 million, 29 million, 43 million, 499 million, 63 million, 24 million. Is that, who would have taken that decision? You?
No, that would have to be approved by the head of entity.
By the CEO?
Head of entity, yes.
Okay. All right. The other question I had, Chairman, is this 1.4 billion that you went through, and this is more to I think it's the lady at the back is the head of finance. Well, how do you pay without a contract? What is the process in terms of paying? Because we see the overall scenario riddled with no contract, no procurement. How do we pay these $1.4 billion without contracts? What's the process? Who approves those, CEO?
No, member. There would have been documentation signed by the approved persons for finance to make the payment.
What would be those documentation? Because it says here procurement breaches, missing documents, etc. What would be the documentation that would be referencing?
Remember that, as I shared, member, that the contracts were not in place. They had expired for that 1.4. However, the person would have submitted their invoice. The invoice would have been approved, and based on that, those approval, the amounts would have been paid by finance with the purchase orders that were submitted.
I see the PS shaking his head. Did that process right in your estimation, PS?
No, okay. Because if you look at some of these contracts, and I have to face the music with these.
Yes.
Because when they are regularized, I have to go to the Infrastructure Committee of Parliament
Yes.
and defend these actions. And I am seeing where contracts have expired from 2021 and 2022. Those things should never, ever happen.
All right.
Can I ask a set of follow-up questions? Oh, sorry, Member Cousins. Go on.
Oh. Yeah, thank you, Chairman. The legal officer is here. In terms of the new car park, are there exclusionary clauses that are posted at the car park where the monies are being collected? Can I ask the legal officer?
Bring the mic a little.
No, they are not.
No, they are non-member.
Yeah, and I guess the legal officer would appreciate why I asked the question. Because under circumstances where you have a security guard collecting on behalf of the university, if you don't have any checks in place to know whether or not this car was actually parked there, then that's a big loophole that you need to plug.
I identified that.
It has serious implications in terms of liability where the university is concerned. And all along the very same campus, if you're on UWI campus and you go in the parking lots, almost every single one of the lots have exclusionary clauses for a reason. So this is an exercise where we are here to help each other. Consider that free legal advice.
We have the signs on the property. One at the very entrance. At the very entrance to the property, there are signs. And just to be fair, the current security provider is not comfortable with the current arrangement. We are not comfortable, and that is why.
Well, nobody could ever be comfortable with this arrangement with a security guard potentially holding thousands of dollars of cash on an everyday basis, and without there being any verification. I mean, we spend millions of dollars putting in place this new car park, and we can't collect properly or recover the monies that are spent. Nobody could be comfortable with this arrangement. But let me come back to two follow-up questions. Post the hurricane, did the university hospital undertake repairs to the infrastructure of the hospital? And could you indicate how much money was spent on those repairs post Hurricane Melissa?
We have done repairs. We are doing repairs. And the amounts that have been spent so far, I would have to gather that information for you.
And would those contracts that would have been signed, would they, or, well, let me ask, have contracts been signed for the providers of those services that are doing the repairs to the hospital now?
I will gather that information for you. The ones that are currently being done have contracts.
All right, so I'll ask you if you could provide to us a detail of the amounts that are being spent, the providers that are being engaged, and the status of those contracts, whether those are signed contracts, whether we employ direct contracting methodology, etc., for those contracts. All right. All right, I'm going to pause here for the university hospital because, as I said, we have Parliament today, but the Ministry of Health, PS, could you provide us with an update related to the status of the outstanding appropriation accounts, which were flagged by the Auditor General?
1 second.
Mr. Hosting, I know you're rushing to leave. I'll soon release you. You're switching the teams. Okay, all right.
One second. 1 second, Chairman, because I signed off 1 year, 2018, 2019, just this morning. So I don't want to mislead you, but we would have submitted 18 of the 25, and we would have completed all the all the capitals for all the outstanding years. And we have 7 appropriation accounts remain outstanding. All of these are what they call the legacy years.
Which years would remain? You said, so you have completed 18 of the 25 outstanding.
Yes.
The 7 would represent which years?
No, there are 19 actually that has been completed.
19 of 25?
18 with the AG and 1 I signed this morning.
Okay.
And we have 7. You have 6 outstanding. So we have from 1920, 14, 15, 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18, and 2013 to 2024. All the recurrents outstanding, but all the capitals have been complete.
And what is your time frame for dealing with those outstanding 7?
I would not want to give you a time frame now because it's extremely, extremely difficult. I'm working with the Accountant General to help us to reconstruct the system. But I can assure you that we're working on it night and day.
Okay. All right. There was also, members, a report on the health systems strengthening prevention, HSSP, I believe it is, which was part of the work done by the Auditor General, and there's a report before us. I don't know if members have any questions related to the HSSP, which is a joint project between the government and the Inter-American Development Bank to support the development and equipping of 13 health facilities, 3 hospitals, and 10 health centers, and the rollout of an electronic health record system. Would this have been member Bunting had asked a question earlier about a patient management system.
No.
This is a separate thing?
It's a separate thing, sir.
All right, could you probably briefly provide us with a brief on what the system is and what it has done so far, where you are in terms of the project and what is outstanding?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Oric Clark, Program Manager for the Health System Strengthening Program. So to date, as of the 31st of March 2026, the Health System Strengthening Program, if you want me to just give a background, I surely can. So in 2018, the government of Jamaica and the Inter-American Bank signed a 5-year contract valued at $50 million to support the development and equipping of 13 health facilities. That's 3 hospitals, 10 health centers, the implementation of a chronic care model, the rollout of an electronic health record system in the 13 pilot sites, and the coordination of the 4th Jamaica Health and Lifestyle Survey. In 2019, the government signed
Mr. Clark, don't read it word for word, because we have it. Just give me a summary, all right?
All right. So to date, what we have done, what we have achieved, we have completed the renovation of Chapelton Community Hospital, commenced the civil works or 7 of these health facilities. We're talking about Spanish Town Hospital, St. Jago Park Health Center, Greater Portmore, Old Harbor Health Center, Brownstown Health Center, Maypen Hospital Outpatient Building, and also Ocherios Health Center. We have also commenced the procurement process for the consultancy for a design firm for cost assisting with tendering and post-contract supervision for the remaining 3 health facilities. We have also completed the implementation of electronic health records in the 13 facilities, completed the implementation of a managed network services in 96 facilities. We are piloting the chronic care model in 5 sites and also executing the 4th Jamaica Health and Lifestyle Survey. So that's the updates for this project as where we are now.
All right, thank you very much. I noted in terms of the Maypen East Health Center, no suitable land has been identified to date. Has there been any progress in terms of determining a land to do this facility?
No, Mr. Chairman, we're actively looking, and since even before I became permanent secretary, matter was brought to my attention to see if I could assist. And the land that was originally earmarked, when they were ready to do the feasibility study, it was found that it was swampy and could not be engineered to fit the purpose for which it was intended. We're actively looking, we're speaking to people in the area to see whether or not they can point us to any available land in Maypen East that we could place this health center.
Okay. Thank you. Members, are there any questions for the Ministry of Health before we wrap up here? P.S. We are going to reconvene in 2 weeks in relation to the University Hospital. We had indicated that we have asked the current CEO, the former CEO, and the board chairman to be present to answer some of the questions that the team has not been able to provide answers to. So our next meeting date is going to be the 28th of April. Members, there is a matter. Yes.
In the invitation that they will send it out to persons or entities to be present at the next meeting, I would humbly ask that customs be presented to.
I have no issue with that, members, that a representative of Jamaica Customs Agency be asked to come to the next meeting, since there are a number of issues that have been raised related to the tax-exempt status. Members, there's one matter in AOB that prior to the proroguing of Parliament and the last election, there was a dissolution of Parliament. There was a report sent by the Auditor General on an audit of RADA. I am asking the committee to support the resubmission of the report to Parliament so that it can be considered by the committee. Because Parliament is dissolved, it doesn't carry over. So it would need to be resubmitted to Parliament for us to be able to review that. Can I have the support of the committee on that?
I endorse that, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I have a motion for the adjournment? Member Seabright, seconded by Member Jackson. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, members. Thank you. Have a good rest of the day. I don't know if you're staying in the gallery, if you're staying for Parliament, but the rules of the Parliament don't allow you to applaud. You can.
Stop. Mental health is just as vital as physical health. It is okay not to be okay. You don't have to carry it alone. Let's break the silence. Talk openly, support each other, and seek help when we need help. Real strength is knowing when to ask for help. Man up to mental health. Reach out and call the Ministry of Health and Wellness helpline at 888 New Life. That's 888-639-5433.